Community Radio Facebook Live group. Okay, yes, it's saying that we are connected. We are connected. So I have an announcement. I've been doing this every week for a couple of weeks, but it's great. This is great, juicy stuff. WPVM's new social media and podcast services. Produce your podcast for your social media program using our professional audio equipment, or let us live stream your story to social media using WPVM's professional equipment. For local artists, musicians, nonprofits, or businesses, contact us at wpvmfm.org for more information. Or you can visit our Facebook page and leave a message, and we'll get back to you. My desire is for the words that you hear, the words spoken today, that they bless you and bring you value. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. Dr. Maya Angelou. Yeah, that's a big breath, eh? The topic that most excites me is how do we shift from survival mode to thriving mode? How can we live better? Living better in our bodies, living better in our hearts, minds, and spirit. How do we rechart our course if the direction we are headed isn't empowering and life-affirming? And to that end, I have two guests in the studio today. This is my first time interviewing with two people, so this is pure excitement. I got a little bit of sweat going on, ladies, I got to tell you, okay?
All good. Don't worry about it.
So we have Heather Reich Edwards. She's back. Pelvic physical therapist and sex educator from vinoandvulvas.com. We had such a great chemistry last conversation, and the topic of sex is so broad. Is that a pun? No, that wasn't it. No, that's okay. Yeah, let's just skip right over that. And there's so much to talk about, to demystify and destigmatize in order to bring us into a healthier sexual relations. So she's going to be visiting us on a quarterly basis.
And I am so very excited about that.
Yes, me too. And we also have in the studio Dr. Debora Meitz. Deborah earned her medical degree at the University of Miami School of Medicine. After practicing medicine in Key West for many years, why could you leave Key West? But anyway, she relocated to Asheville, North Carolina. Dr. Debbie specialized in women's health and alternative medicine as a family physician. She also has studied meditation, spirituality, sacred let's just do that again. Sacred sexuality. Doesn't that sound pretty? And the practices of Tantra. Dr. Debbie has studied with teachers from around the world, and as an educator, she's an advanced certified Tantra educator, universal healing Tao, is it Tao? Tao instructor. Okay, thank you for that. If you want to check out Dr. Debbie's site, her site, tantradoctor.com. Also, both Debbie and Heather are on Facebook and Instagram. Vino and Vulvas and Tantra Doctor. Yeah, cool. So welcome, ladies. So when I invited Heather to come and join us for this conversation, she said, I got to tell you, I don't really know very much about Tantra. And I said, good, because I don't know anything about Tantra too. So the one thing that I thought that I knew, and I'm willing to just send that out the door, right, out the window, shoot it out the window off the 4th floor of this building, is that Tantra was about delaying orgasm, and what's the other thing? Or not even having an orgasm. And I think I didn't learn any more after that because I wasn't interested in either one of those.
With doing Vino and Vulvas, that's what I do. I host panels on things that I don't know about, so I can ask lots of questions. I think the first talk we did on Tantra that Debbie was on, the first panel, was called "What the Hell is Tantra?" Just get it out there,
Yes, so my growth and my knowledge was stunted immediately when I was like, nah, if that's what it's all about, then I'm not in it. Yeah.
Right. I think I would agree with you. If that's what it really was, I don't think I'd be interested either.
Who would, really?
Yeah, so
exactly.
Tell us, so what are some other things that people think that Tantra is that we are mistaken about?
Well, a lot of people think of Tantra being as just like, more orgasms and better orgasms and orgasming for hours and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that is not the purpose of Tantra. However, it is a secondary benefit of Tantra.
Oh.
Having all of that.
Orgasms for hours is a secondary benefit. I'm like, sign me up.
And I'm like, I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, I got time for that. I could make time for that. Yeah.
So how did you get started?
I pursued it because I've been meditating for, oh my goodness, I'd been meditating for about 20 some odd years. And I really wanted a form of sexuality that met with my spiritual consciousness and my life purpose.
Right.
And so
Did you have a partner at the time, during this time period?
No, I didn't. I was single. And I said, this is a great opportunity to explore sexuality on some different levels.
Right.
And do some really deep healing and consciousness raising. So what Tantra really is, the purpose of Tantra is actually an awakening of consciousness, of spiritual consciousness, expanding of one's health, vitality, longevity, as well as getting the secondary benefit of greater sexual pleasure. You do get to have more orgasms and different kind of orgasms and better orgasms and all that. But what it really is about is expanding your consciousness, spiritual growth.
Right.
The sexual energy is really the fuel
Right.
for spiritual enlightenment. Tantra was started about 5,000 years ago in both ancient China and India.
Right.
And their perspectives on this.
So, okay, hold on. So I'm going to interrupt you. So
Yeah.
people long time ago discovered that when they get their rocks off, that they kind of touch God at the same time.
Yes, essentially, yes. Yes, there's a little more to it than that, but yeah.
Oh, well, I'm definitely trying to simplify it for all of those out there, yeah.
But that is true, absolutely. And that the sexual energy is connected to all these deeper parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
Our mental health, our spiritual health, our physical bodies, our emotional well-being is all enhanced by using sexual energy as a vehicle for healing and awakening consciousness. So it's so much more than having great sex, which is also quite amazing and awesome in itself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I love talking to Debbie about this stuff so much. It's, actually,
You've got this big old grin on your face, girl. Your eyes are so lit up.
let me rephrase. I love watching Debbie talk about this. We were at dinner after Vino and Vulvas a few months ago or something, and like the question got posed, and I think we were quite a few drinks in, and the question was like, "What is this like whole body orgasm thing?" And Debbie goes on to this like big thing and like explains it with all of these big colors and arm motions, and I think like the whole table kind of came together. And I was like, "Wow, Debbie." Yeah.
Yes. Like kind of like that scene with when Sally met Harry or Harry met Sally or something.
Exactly.
Can I have what she's having?
Right there. Yeah.
Oh, how yummy. So you were your first experiment? Like, how did you get books or did you went classes?
I did everything. I was so interested. I explored
and this is why you were living in Key West, right?
Actually, I was already living in Asheville and Key West at the time.
Okay.
So, yes, both places that are non-ordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think makes a big difference.
Right.
So this sort of exploration is encouraged in these places.
Right. That's true.
And I hope that it becomes encouraged everywhere, because the world available to us is so much greater than what we think.
Right.
So yes.
Okay, so I'm getting this idea that it's about two people participating. So being in a relationship is kind of necessary, or is can this work for one night stands too?
Depends on
I don't know if it works. Yeah, thank you, Heather.
Have they studied up
better? There's actually different ways of doing Tantra. There's what they call single cultivation, which is just one person working with their own sexual energy.
Right.
And then there's dual cultivation with two people. And then I suppose you could extend it from there if you want, because yes, you can.
She's like, okay, this is going on the radio. Yeah. By the way, this might be the time that if you have children and you're uncomfortable with this conversation, you might want to listen. I'll be posting it on the website so you can listen to it later. Okay? Yeah.
It is a sacred connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's really important in Tantra. It's not casual, really.
Right.
And we work a lot with the energy of love. And I think it's important to distinguish that from the emotion of love, because they're two different things.
Right. So you don't have to be in love with the person that you're practicing Tantra with, because you're talking about the big love, not the little human love.
That's right.
Okay.
Not the limited, needy versions of love that many of us engage in.
Make me feel attractive. Make me feel wanted. Yeah.
Right. It's about connecting to the big love. It's
Right.
connecting to the universe. It's connecting the energies of heaven and earth through becoming a conduit for that,
Right.
through your body. That's really a big part of what we're doing with Tantra. And there's a lot of ways to interpret Tantra. It's sort of like if you use the word meditation. It means different things to different people.
Right.
And I try to take the purest approach to it and the most unlimited approach, and the one that really reflects the sacred nature of it.
Yeah.
So, the word Tantra, it's actually Tantra Yoga, and it means an expansive weaving of energy bodies through a union. So we're weaving all these things together, whether you're doing a single cultivation with yourself or whether you're doing it with a partner. We are weaving our inner masculine and feminine energies. We're weaving the divinity with our normal ego and personality selves. We're blending the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. And we're also weaving our energies with that other partner.
Right.
So it's about a spiritual enlightenment.
It almost sounds so intimate that there's a little part of me that feels like, it makes me want to vomit. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
You can do it your own. There's definitely laughing in Tantra.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Good.
the other thing is that there's boundaries in Tantra. There's respect. There's consideration and caring.
Right.
Are part of Tantra.
Right.
It's actually seeing the divine in one another, and it's about deep connection. But obviously, people put limits. We have our own limits that we allow with that. And so it's an unlimited, infinite experience, and we do it the way that we do it.
Right.
As human beings.
Can you mix Tantra with S&M?
Actually, yes, you can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I kind of tend to really enjoy learning about both of them for similar reasons. Because they both, it's like really different, interesting ways to get into the same sort of space.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat.
I love what you say all the time. Whenever I go to Vino and Volvas, inevitably, just maybe the times that I show up, but you say that the time to talk about sex is before you start having sex. So I think there was...
To clarify, not immediately before you start having but like dinner the day before.
Right, with your clothes on, where it's completely not intimidating at all. So those are when you set the boundaries for if it's S&M or if it's a discussion of Tantra. So how would someone learn? Do they got to go to a workshop, or they buy a couple of books, or...
Nowadays, you can do it in so many ways. There's books, there's videos, there's podcasts, there's live events, workshops. I teach a lot of workshops and classes. There's private classes that people can do with a Tantra educator. There's a lot of ways to do it. And obviously, shows like this, some people are learning about Tantra for the first time just hearing us talk.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways to learn about this. It's our birthright to have this level of pleasure and connection with our spirituality and our inner divinity. It's what we're really all wanting.
Right.
In fact, with one of my earliest tantric experiences, I had a lot of I was experiencing wonderful ecstatic pleasure, and a lot of connection to the heavens. And I was getting all kinds of, it's going to sound odd, but actually cosmic downloads of information.
Right.
I just felt like I really was in that oneness, but completely energized and alive.
Uh-huh.
I realized in that moment, yet I was at so much peace and had so much joy. I realized in that moment that if people knew that they had this inside of them, we would have no war. There would be no war. There would be no greed. We would not treat each other.
So for
the way
those of
we
you
do.
that are listening on the radio, I'm just looking at Heather's face, and that's what's tickling the crap out of me. Did you want to say something, sweetie?
And no, it's just like, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
You know, like I always kind of, it's like, yes, I, host an event about sex, but anyone who really knows me knows, like, it's not about sex.
Right.
It's about this bigger, being able to connect to all that you actually are. And sex is just usually one of the biggest factors to it. So I love it, like, just to hear it from all the different avenues that it comes in.
Yeah.
So that's why I get giddy.
That it is, and I completely agree with you in the sense that I didn't really start to experience orgasms until I was in my 40s. And that was through masturbation. I had, for years, I was the girl that go, oh, that just kind of looks kind of silly. I'm not going to do that. That's a waste of time. I preferred having a partner. So then, of course, just like if you don't know how to make a great meal for yourself, you're stuck having to go out to a restaurant all the damn time. I didn't know how to make a great meal for myself, so I always had to wait for somebody to come and help me out with that meal, right?
Right.
So in my 40s, I don't know what happened. Okay, I know what happened. I went.
I met Debbie.
No. I was on a
I
trip.
recognized you. No, I'm just kidding.
I was on a trip to the girlfriend of mine that she worked for event planners, and so every year I gave them 2 trips as a company, and she invited me as the guest, and we went to Key West, and we ended up in a sex shop. And we bought, I was living in Europe at the time, and she gifted me my first apparatus. And so I went back to Europe and I used my first apparatus when I was in my 40s. And I remember thinking, why in the world didn't I get here before? Because I'm talking about that is one step in your sexual empowerment when you are able to learn what pleasures your own body. And it makes you so much a better partner to be with somebody else because you're able to be very clear about what works and what doesn't work. But remember, Heather's recommendation is that you have this conversation with your clothes on and it's nowhere near having sex. That's a great place to have the conversation about it.
And that's not just my recommendation, that's a pretty standard recommendation. I just tend to say it.
Oh, okay. So one of the recommendations from great sex educators, talk about sex way away from sex, way away from the bedroom. So I completely, it is a spiritual trip.
Yes.
It is that touching into another dimension. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to have a partner that you're able to do that with, it's even, but what is it like? You're touching into that other dimension, and you're like, okay, we're done now. Just I'm in my state, and please leave me alone. Or how does that work as a couple?
I think it tends to be a more experienced state, so it's more inclusive and more open. And there's a great deal of safety that usually comes with that. Because if we're being charged and filled with divine energy, and we're being the grounding of Mother Earth, we're pretty safe. We're connected.
Yeah.
And if we're experiencing love with that person,
Right.
It's way better than ordinary reality in terms of sexuality.
Right.
Where the mind chatter goes on and that sort of thing. We actually get outside of that into a more expanded experience of ourselves.
Right.
As well as with the other person. So it's transcendent. and then we're connected to all that is. So sexual energy, I've studied Taoist Tantra. I've actually studied Tantra around and many different approaches to it. But the Taoists really felt that this was a universal energy, that our sexual energy is sort of like the lowest vibration of 3 different levels of energy that we have. And then
Right.
that was what they call the Jing Qi. And then the second level would be like organ Qi, like the energy in our kidney, liver, pancreas, spleen, and heart and lungs, and that sort of thing. And then that's really related to emotions and mental states of consciousness.
Right.
And then that energy can be brought even to a higher level, higher vibration, more refined, and be spiritual energy. So we were connecting on all of these levels and enhancing our vitality, our longevity. So it's really about connection to all that is.
Yeah.
So when we raise our sexual energy to that level, we kind of get outside of a mindset of it just being to get off, for
Right.
example. Can be used in a different way.
Right.
So the ancient Taoists would live to well past because they used certain practices
Right.
that fed their aliveness in a whole different way.
Do you think that the way that we do sex now is more that it takes away energy from us rather than bringing us energy?
Yes, in fact,
I mean,
that's,
that's kind of like the discussion. Okay, so would Tantra be the thing that for an athlete, oh, they've got an event and you're told you're not supposed to, have sex for a week or 2 or 3 or whatever they do because they consider it to be more draining. Would Tantra be something that would not do that?
That's exactly right. Glad you mentioned that. Women actually tend to get energy from sexuality. We actually, so what we're doing is we're cultivating sexual energy, and we're developing channels to circulate this energy to different places in our bodies,
Right.
and even outside of our bodies. But so a lot of times, what happens with the typical type of orgasm, let's say that a person with a penis and testicles would have, a lot of times that is extremely draining to the overall energy of that person. So one of the Taoist goals and practices is to actually separate orgasm from ejaculation. It's not the orgasm that where you lose the energy, it's actually the ejaculation. So what they're doing is they're separating those two so that the orgasmic sexual energy is raised up and circulated through the body, and it actually builds that person's energy. They have more vitality, more happiness,
Right.
more aliveness. And so people who do that, could go out and, run a marathon,
Right.
or participate in a sporting event afterward. It's quite different.
Is that, like, as far as people with vaginas and vulvas and ejaculation, is that the same thing?
No.
No?
No. In fact, people with vulvas and vaginas actually gain energy through their orgasm and ejaculation. So it's sort of a different kind of thing entirely.
I'm digging that. I love it.
Yeah. And so a person with a penis and testicles could actually have many orgasms in a given session of lovemaking or tantra.
Really?
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of that for them is that it doesn't stop just because the emission of fluid happens.
Right.
They can keep going, so they become multi-orgasmic.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you got any questions, Heather?
Yeah, well, sometimes, and this is, I think I've kind of started understanding this better, but I know one of the things that didn't really attract me much to Tantra is so many of the images are like, a man and a woman all wrapped up, and it's female and masculine energy, but like what I've kind of, I think, learned a little bit more is that it really isn't like a straight thing at all.
No.
Yeah, it's much more inclusive, and just even the
Absolutely.
language you use, like,
Yeah.
the bodies with penises and bodies with vaginas and things like that. So, like,
Yeah.
how was the masculine and feminine, how
energy of polarity. Yin and yang is another way of looking at it. Yang energy tends to go from the center out, tends to be more forceful,
Right.
that sort of thing. Yin energy is more about drawing energy in. It's more magnetic, more attraction based. It's more, yang is more light. Like the sun, for example, is a nice archetypal version of the sun, and the way it puts out so much energy.
Right.
And the moon would be a more yin version. So within each of us, we have yin and yang energies, masculine and feminine energy. So it levels, and I can relate from one place or another. You and I, any two people there's still going to be a continuum, a polarity of masculine and feminine energies that we bring to our situation.
Right.
One more receptive, one more active, one more giving, one more receiving. So it works like that. So it really doesn't have to do with gender at all.
So I regret to say that there was a technical difficulty with our Facebook Live, meaning that I was the technical difficulty and I didn't have the microphone turned up. So those that are listening on Facebook Live, they weren't getting anything. I'm so sorry.
Just a bunch of goofy facial expressions.
And us laughing and having a great time and then wondering, what in the world are they talking about? If you were just joining us on the radio, we are talking about Tantra today. You're listening to the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on your dial. You can find us on the internet, WPVMFM.org. Or now you can get the video and the audio on Facebook. On our Facebook Live. You can actually hear us talking with Dr. Debora Meitz today of tantradoctor.com. And joining us for our quarterly visit is Heather Reich Edwards from vinoandvulvas.com. And you guys, you're on the panel.
Yes.
What is it, next week, Monday?
This next Monday, the 30th of July.
Right. It's all about Tantra. Everybody's talking about Tantra.
Tantra and sacred sexuality.
Yeah. Where's the place again?
It's at the block off Biltmore.
Oh, okay. At 7?
Yes, the panel is actually from 7 to 9, but we
Okay.
have it like 6:30 is kind of when we tell people to get there, just so
Right.
everyone can
Get
their
a drink
drinks in,
if
get
they
settled
want and sit
all
down.
that, yeah.
I really like it. I like the atmosphere. I mean, I hadn't been to one at the Block Off Biltmore. The last one I had been, it was the one over by the Champagne Bar. But I really liked that little atmosphere there in the Block of
Nice.
Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it was
great
nice. It was a
spot.
nice little crowd. What was it last month you were talking about?
Last month was all things queer about sex.
Yes, all things queer about sex. Yeah, and this month, if you want to check it out, next week Monday, from 6:30-ish, get there. 7 to 9, there's a panel and talking about all things Tantra. So, I got to talk about. Let me see. I got to do an announcement here. Let me choose one. Underwriter support for WPVM is made possible by the French Broad Food Co-op, a locally owned grocery store focusing more on people than profits by providing living wages, supporting local farmers and producers, and being community owned. More information on the web at French Broad Food Co-op. So you started the practice. Yoga brought you into Tantra, and you were living between Asheville and Key West when you started, and you were also single when you were started, when you got started on Tantra. So you just started,
Right.
what, reading books?
Reading books, going to classes.
Yeah. So what were you, were you open, sexually open? Do you feel like you had any hang-ups? So what was your attitude towards sex before you started studying Tantra, and then what has changed over these years?
My sexual energy has opened up tremendously. My heart has opened. My physically, I just feel so much more open. I think for a while my sexual energy had shut down a bit. I tend to be a very sensitive person. Had some trauma in my life. And I think we all go through certain levels of, amounts of conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
Pain through our relationships, through losses,
Right.
just through real life situations that we go to. And I think that we can shut that sexuality down. And I was really looking for, I found that a lot of people in their sexuality and in their relationships, they were really taking and not really so much there to give to
yeah.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't want to be in that kind of a situation
Right.
in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted something that fit with
What is
my
that-
worldview, my spirituality.
What, years ago, I used to hear people talking about getting a nut.
Yeah.
They were all about what they were going to get, what they're
Yeah.
going to receive.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was little at all to do with what you were giving. And there seems to be this perspective or this belief that you have to be intimately, emotionally involved with the person that you're having sex for you to have a desire to actually more concentrate on giving, more than you are in receiving. And I'm like, well, if you're not working on the giving and on the receiving, why are you doing it, whether you're in a partnership or not,
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
I wanted, and I wanted partners with a greater consciousness, a deeper consciousness, a more spiritual consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that we couldn't have fun, because I'm quite fun-loving and adventurous,
And I've seen what her orgasms look like over dinner. so I can't imagine it would be anything less than stellar.
Oh my God, I love that.
I love your projections.
Anytime.
I love it. I love
But,
it.
it's about happiness and joy and connection,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling that in yourself all the time, whether you're with a partner, whether you're not with a partner, when you go to the grocery store. This is something that's not just something you experience in the moment. It's something that changes you fundamentally in terms of your worldview and who you are inside. It's opening up your own treasures inside. It's sort of like, I look at it like, let's say you had, millions of dollars in the bank and you didn't know the account number, or that you even had it there. I think that's how we live.
Yeah.
We live lives of paucity when we could be living lives of true wealth.
Right. What was it? There was a writer that said something about we live in quiet mediocrity or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, and I think that's true on so many levels. Like that's
yeah.
we use the sex avenue to kind of get there, but it's like all of those things. Like you're so afraid of what you could be if you actually tried to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like how many ways we shut ourselves down.
Yeah.
and we're not. We don't put ourselves out there because we're maybe afraid of how good we could be, or how
Right.
big we could
Yeah.
be, or what we would
Right.
do.
That reminds me of that Marianne Williamson quote. I don't know if it was actually attributed. It's attributed to her, but I don't know if she was the actual originator. It might have been Nelson Mandela, I think.
I think you're right.
That we are more afraid of our grandness, our greatness, than we are of our,
Right.
so committed to the idea of being small because we're just afraid to figure out, have the experience of how bomb diggity we are, Yeah. Yeah. So your light is so bright. Your eyes are so shiny. I'm like fascinated. What are we talking about? We're talking about Tantra, right?
Yeah, you've also been captivated by Debbie's magic.
Yes. You were over there grinning, eyes all lit up, and I'm like, hey, girl. Yes, I've
Keep
become.
talking, Debbie.
Yes. Yes. I'm completely mesmerized. So, who is your typical client? Do you have like an age group, a sex, a gender?
To do classes for women and also for couples. And no, there's a wide range of ages, and I think that's one of the things that's so beautiful about this is it's universal.
Right.
We are universally sexual beings. I mean, children are sexual. I mean, really. And we I think we get the wrong messages. We learn how to do it in ways that are not very healthy
Right.
and not very fulfilling, certainly not on a spiritual level. So I've got people in my classes who are in their early 20s up to people
Really?
in their 70s.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like I believe in lifelong learning. I think we all have this unlimited opportunity to, I think we're unlimited beings.
Right.
We are divine.
Right.
And it's, why not take every opportunity you can? So, yeah, I'm really happy to say that people of all ages, all walks of life, come to these classes.
They're starting wherever they're at, whatever age
Yes.
that they're at.
Yeah,
That's juicy.
yeah, it's really, really special.
Really.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned like from 20 to 70. Is there a time that we humans were designed to just like shut down and say, okay, it's done. We ain't playing no more?
I have a favorite story about this. Like, there's this assumption, right, that like, old people don't have sex or something.
Right.
Which is a panel that we're going to talk about.
Yes,
August.
yes.
But I was working with a client one time and, asking questions about sexual history, which I've learned to never assume anything about anyone on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember this answer. And it was like, oh, honey, I'm 73 and my husband's 75. We don't have sex nearly like we used to. We're down to only like once a week now. And I was just like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and I made sure I let her know like how stellar she was
Yeah.
doing. 'Cause she really didn't have any sense of comparison.
Really?
But yeah, it was just really kind of cute. So like, there's never, and then you get people who are 50 and oh no, honey, that ship's long sailed.
Right.
I mean, it's just
Really?
yeah. There's all sorts of answers for that. Or like after you have a baby, then well, it's gonna hurt from here on
Right.
out. I mean, there's just all sorts of
Right.
stories people tell themselves
Uh-huh.
or that they get from their culture or their family
Right.
and things for that. But
So is Tantra a way of being able to reawaken a dormant sex life? Like for a couple who you were talking about, 50 that goes, oh, that's long sailed kind of thing.
Absolutely. In fact, it happens all the time that people find out that Tantra even exists, later,
Right.
after they've been married or whatever for, 20, 30 years. So people always often find out when they're retired because they've got the time and
Right.
the energy to explore something deeper.
Right.
And it happens all the time that it rekindles the love and the passion between a couple.
well, and so often I think things get shut down because one or both partners has some sort of a physical issue or like a lack of desire or or erectile dysfunction
Right.
or vulvar pain or something like that. And the thing I love about Tantra and like BDSM too, it's like there are kind of these routes that you can bypass all of the issues and figure out that which actually works, and so it's really lovely. It's just one of the versions of like a really beautifully resilient sexual health model,
Yeah. Because I was kind of, I have never been in a long-term, when I say long-term twice, because I'm inferring like decades, but no, a year is the longest I've been in a relationship, right? And I kind of, I wonder about the dynamics of long-term relationships after a while. That does it partly lose its luster because one kind of feels like they're obligated to being able to do it when they don't really feel like doing it? And how do you address things like that in Tantra?
Well, we deal with consent issues all the time. I mean, my feeling is that you can't say yes to something until you can say no
Yeah.
to something.
absolutely, yeah.
So that's actually part of the
Kind of like that
workshops
full
I do.
body yes, like I'm all the way in kind of yes, or
Or even just the ability to say yes or to say no to something. And then when someone has permission to say no, they can give you a.
yeah.
I know so many people, women in particular, who have felt obligated to be sexually active or to perform.
Weekly
By their
quotas, yeah.
yeah, and
Meet the quota.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they don't they have the option
Right.
to say no. You go through it for
Mm.
and it's not supposed to be. I think true tantric relationships require a level of connection, and communication, and honesty. And so in so doing, you heal wounds that happen on different levels over years of time. I mean, we have societal and cultural conditioning, messages we got from our families and our religious institutions, and things we learned in school, and just, some of the
There's so much
twisted.
unlearning that we have to do to get
Yeah.
into adulthood. It's incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the bigger part of all of it, I think.
Yeah.
Is the unlearning
Mm-hmm.
than the learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and healing, awakening,
Mm-hmm.
and cultivating, and receiving nurturing
Mm-hmm.
and love.
Right.
It's really about all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it can be an awfully great time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have so much fun. It's not an austere practice. It's
Right.
about really being alive.
Right.
And I love that you said that because, I was thinking as we were talking about like the taking, giving and take,
Mm-hmm.
And where receive fits in there, and like receive is completely different from taking.
Right.
And I just think that's like, there's all those different energies like that, and taking in its own way can be an energy that can be consensual and can work.
Right.
Yeah.
But receiving is so very different from taking, and that takes someone who then wants to give.
Right.
And so, being the one to be able to go into a situation to really want to give opens up so many more avenues for the experiences that everyone can then be able to have.
Right. I was just kind of thinking about that when I think of the word tantra, I also connect it with early visual, early versions of pornography. These luscious drawings and different positions and stuff coming from Eastern, nations. That's not tantra. That's not, or it's just kind of been convoluted.
Because it gets tied up in work too.
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is convoluted. I mean, I think, and who draws that line between what's pornographic and
Right.
what's erotic? So there's that part of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was reading recently in a book, Lord, I'm not going to be able to tell you what the title is, but I thought it was really interesting that there were priestesses that initiated when young girls came of the age of their cycle, that they were actually initiated into sacred sexuality in that same time period. Priestesses also initiated 16-year-old boys, I think it was at the time, 13, 16, somewhere in there. And is that kind of what part of the confusion that people can have about Tantra, is that it's about sex workers and, yeah?
I could see that being very confusing when you deal with people, before the age of consent and all of that sort of thing. I could see that being very confusing to people. I tend
What's the
to think
biggest
of it-
misunderstanding you think that people have about Tantra?
Probably that it's just about pleasure, and also that it somehow it's not pure. Or that it's not truly spiritual or truly coming from a place of love.
Is that
And that's
to
just
do
more
because we
about-
so muddied waters when it comes to sex, period?
Yeah, I think our ideas about sex can become very confused and very complex.
But I think also that the tantra is not like a protected word. Anyone can say that they're doing tantra, and so it's not. So you say this, and and I know coming from you, Debbie, and like all the panelists that we're gonna have, like tantra really holds a really sacred, pure space. But that's like anyone can be like, oh yeah, come get a tantric massage, or
Right.
So there are a lot of ways that the word gets used because it's not a protected word because we don't
Right. Yeah.
value sex.
Many interpretations of what that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So who are your other panelists for the next Vino and Vulva on Monday?
Cara Cottrell is one of our panelists, and she is she's a licensed counsel social worker, and she is let's see. There are all sorts of very fancy words to describe her tantric lineage. If you look on the
Right.
Vino and Vulva's website, But it's really interesting because she also comes from a Jungian analyst sort of basis, and so she does a lot of work with archetypes, and she also does Vedic astrology, and so she kind of has a even different spin than what Debbie kind of has on it, and
Right.
So that's really kind of neat. I like to see the two of them discuss it together
Right.
because you can see them like actively, like they're not always speaking from the same place. You know,
Right.
they're always kind of being able to bounce things off each other. And then the other one is Taylor Johnson, and he's just kind of, he does workshops, and he does some couples coaching and things like that. But he comes to it a lot from like he started with like a premature ejaculation is what made him interested in tantra, and so and that's kind of like part of his story as far as
okay.
why he started learning about
Right.
it.
Because he was learning in order to learn how to to withhold.
Right, just to learn about his body,
Control,
and so and then
right.
and just then got really much more into it. But he really is interested in the ejaculation parts, like as far as what Debbie was talking
Right.
about. So yeah,
Okay.
so it'll be kind of neat to have we've got various ages and women and a man on the panel. So it'll be fun. Everyone from different backgrounds.
It's always fun. It's always fun. I highly, highly recommend it. It's the most the adult space that I've ever been in to talk about something that we all are curious about, would love to improve, have a better experience about. And, there's no shame and there's lots of giggling and lots of laughing, but it's all great fun. It's not this embarrassing. So yeah, if you want to be in a room with a bunch of other grown-ups and just talking about straight, yeah. It's great. It's awesome. So, how do people start with you? I mean, do you usually do a group thing? Is it a group thing that you do, or you do one-on-one, or?
I do primarily group classes.
Mm-hmm.
People can contact me through my website or
Yeah.
any of the ways that they do,
Uh-huh.
and we'll just talk about what.
Oh, yeah, just remember, she's at tantradoctor.com, and you can find her on Facebook as well as Instagram. Yeah.
Yes. But people often, I find I meet people everywhere I go that when they hear that I'm teaching Tantra, people can't help but ask about it.
Oh, they're so titillating. Huh?
Yeah. Exactly. People, they want to know because I think, this is a universal energy. Everybody wants to grow and expand and have more and better experiences than what we have. I think so. That's where we start. We'll start talking about what their life, what they'd like to have different in their life, how they'd like to grow, and then if that's almost always a fit for what I'm
Right.
doing, because what I'm doing is very respectful and holds this person as a sacred divine being.
Right.
And we learn how to open, how to cultivate the sexual energy itself through some Taoist tantric practices usually. And we learn about how to move and circulate that energy and use it for a higher purpose, how to truly be connected to
Right.
the heavens and the earth,
Right.
and how to use that for growth and healing.
So when people come that are single, that they're not a couple, how do you teach them? Is it basically you start with just them being the only person that they concentrate on, basically?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a very valid way of doing it.
And then
Many
do you
people
teach
come
them
that way.
how to get into conversation with a prospective partner and say, this is what I'm looking for? How does that
Yeah.
conversation go? Yeah. Do you guys want to role play that for me?
Maybe need it.
I really want to be useful to the listeners. No, but I mean, yeah, because there's a way of being able to have that kind of conversation to say, this is the level that I'm playing at sexually. Are you up
Right.
for this?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's just that easy. You just say, this is the thing, what I'm interested in. And a lot of times other people won't have even heard of it. And then I think people need to get educated
Right.
and then make choices about their relationships based on that. But we do teach ways to do energetic exchange that you can do with your clothes on. I mean, we can connect our heart chakras to each other. We can connect on these different levels that are very spiritual.
That
and very
require no
sacred.
touch.
Yes.
Okay.
And also we teach how to exchange energy with lovemaking. But I mean, you can extend it from there. But you learn with your clothes on.
Right.
and it's about energy exchange.
Right. Okay.
So we do a lot of these kinds of practices where, one partner sends energy, sexual energy, for example, if they're a couple, and this is what they choose to do as consenting adults, they can send energy up one person into the other person's sexual center, and circulate the energy up and out their crown chakra to the other person's crown chakra and down.
So do most of your students already energy savvy?
Not
people?
necessarily, not at all. A lot of people have come to me who are, in fact, non-spiritual. And I think it's a little bit different for people who don't have a spiritual perspective on life. But I think people know that there's more, and they want to experience that. So a lot of times they're not really into energy, but they know they want to heal something. They know they want to feel more.
Right.
Do you get many people who come to your workshops and that like are looking to get past it, like having a relationship issue and that's what they're coming from, or like they're having a body physical issue and they're coming, so it's
All the above, both, yeah, absolutely, and everything in between.
Yeah.
It's any kind of healing that you want to do to open up to your own sacred energies and to learn how to share that, how to open that in yourself and to share that with another.
So is it any different, the bodies that you're dealing with, like female to female, male to male, in regards to this energy exchange and what
Not really. I mean, there's not really. It's about human to human.
Yeah. So what are the things that, what do people say after they've taken done a course with you?
That they had no idea that this was available. Men, for example, often who experience and do these practices find that they regain their vitality. They can overcome, erectile dysfunction issues. Women who don't consider themselves to be orgasmic or have issues with arousal find that goes away.
Right.
And people who aren't connecting on the same level with or they feel a disconnect between their spirituality and their sexuality find that, wow, this does fit together.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am a divine being and I can connect, and that sexual energy is not a bad thing. We think, and that's one of the problems, sex is dirty, right?
Right.
Is a lot
Is that
of
that
the-
whole Adam and Eve thing with the apple and stuff?
that
She
and
developed boobs, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
it was her fault for the downfall of everything. They're
Right,
out
and
of
then-
paradise, and
somehow through these institutions that we live through, and especially that we grow up with as kids, we get this altered sense of sexuality and that it's a bad thing, and then
yeah.
often it is misused, and that's a problem. But people don't know that it's really meant to be that energy that feeds the rest of us
Right.
on a mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional level. And I think that's the treasure, the buried treasure that's inside that you don't find till you actually
Right.
go inside of yourself. But it's the birthright of every human being.
What do you think that pornography has done more of a disservice to us as a society than it has actually served to open us to our sexuality? It's reinforced this whole taking thing?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's people are desensitized ultimately by the porn. But Heather, let's see what you have to say.
Well, I just okay, so when you couple pornography with total crap for sex education, that's the problem, right? I mean, it's like,
Because they're going to the pornography in order to get the sex education.
and
yeah.
and watching pornography to learn about sex is like, watching an action movie to learn how to play basketball. or
Yeah.
something. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. This is.
It
not
already
how
looks like artificial intelligence.
right. Like it's just like that's not like that's the movie version,
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? They look like blow-up dolls, live blow-up dolls. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the thing with a lot of those, like a professional porn scene, like it might take like 4 hours to record that 5 minutes or whatever
Uh-huh.
of film.
Right.
But then that becomes the expectation for the 16-year-old who
Right.
thinks that that's what it's going to look like. You know,
Uh-huh.
so it's a complete, it's not sex.
Right.
It's, it's the theatrical version, or
Mhm.
it's the non-consensual, or it's
Mhm.
or it's or the, I don't know. There's so many different factors to it that it's not what healthy sexuality looks like.
So,
So unless we're teaching what healthy sexuality looks like,
all right.
you know.
So I went to Amsterdam with my best friend Brian. I don't know, more than a decade ago, I think it was. And for some reason, I always thought that it would be really erotic to watch a live sex show. I had lived in New York, had not interested at all at that time. But so we decided while we were doing the tourist thing that we would go to this live sex show. And do you know, it was the most unerotic thing that I've ever seen. I mean, like was, I don't know, maybe the theatrics of a porn movie made it seem more erotic than it actually was. You know, like condensing 4 or 5 hours of taping into 5 minutes of whatever. It seemed more erotic at that moment at the film than seeing two people on a stage having sex for some reason. You know?
And I will say too that there is actually some really great porn available. Like there's ethical porn, and there's
Yes, you
feminist
have it on.
porn, and there's,
Do you have some recommendations on your site, vinoandvulvas.com?
I don't think I do. I think we talked about this last time too. I should probably put up some of the recommendations.
Because I know that you had. I
And-
thought you had mentioned that there were some really great companies that were
there
doing
are,
good stuff.
and you generally have. It's not going to be free.
Mm.
Like that's one of the
Mhm.
things. It's
Right.
because they get paid, and,
Right.
and it's a lot of like and porn stars who are sex educators too,
Mhm.
and are are activists for really stepping up the game when it comes to how we talk about sex. So
Right.
so I don't want to lump all of it together.
Mhm.
But when you just start looking for free porn and you don't know the source, like it's really a mixed bag
Right.
of what one
Because
can
they've
get.
got amateurs now that are just willing to tape it, and yeah. Interesting. All right, so you need to put that on your site, girl. Yeah, some resources for people that are interested in what would you call it? I mean,
Ethical porn.
ethical porn.
Mhm.
Okay, ethical porn. All right, so ladies, oh my gosh, we got like a minute and 30 seconds left of juiciness to share. We've had such a great conversation. As I said before in the intro, the topic of sex is so broad.
So broad.
What would you like to share with people? What would you like people to know about Tantra?
That it's about connecting to the deepest parts of yourself and connecting to the divine and to everything else, to all that is. And that sexual energy is a vehicle for healing and for growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a dirty thing.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to see that perception in society change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're
Health-
working on it.
Healthy sexuality. Yeah, and having these kind of conversations, I think, are helpful. I mean, and that's why I really love the conversation of Vino and Vulvas. I ended up there by accident. Somebody else, dragged me along, and I was like, this is the most grown-up place I've ever been to talk about sex, with all our clothes on.
Right. We just look like a normal book club sitting around.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Dr. Debora Meitz and Heather Reich Edwards. You can find these ladies on Facebook. You can find them on Instagram. And the next Vino and Vulvas is Monday.
It's coming Monday.
This coming Monday. Get there around 6:30 so you can socialize, and the panel starts at 7 to 9. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.